So picture this. You're ready to buy a gun for the very first time. You march on down to your local gun store, you open up the door, and you're instantly overwhelmed by the number of guns to choose from. There's AR-15s, AK-47s, pump-action shotguns, bolt-action rifles, semi-auto shotguns, semi-auto pistols, revolvers, and pistol-caliber carbines. And you have no idea what the heck you should be looking at. Hey guys, my name is Matt, and you're watching Show Me Firearms. In today's video, we're going to talk about some things that you should consider as you set out to buy your first gun and exercise your Second Amendment rights for the very first time. Let's get into it. Now, before you make that trip to the gun store, there's one key question that you need to keep in the back of your mind. What's my reason for buying a gun? What type of shooting do I want to do? This is important because the type of shooting that you want to do will ultimately help you determine what kind of gun is right for you. But let's put that question on the back burner for now, because if you've never shot a gun before, you may want to consider first buying a gun that's better suited for learning with before you actually go out and get the gun that you need for your intended purpose. So if you're just starting out, I would highly recommend that you first buy a gun chambered in .22 long rifle. Now, .22 is a great cartridge for beginners to start out with because .22 is a very small cartridge, meaning that it's going to have a very low recoil impulse, and it's also not going to be too loud when compared to larger calibers. Not having the distractions of heavy recoil impulse and loud noise will allow you to focus more on firearm manipulation, sight alignment, your grip, and trigger management, those basic fundamental skills that you need to get nailed first before you carry over into other disciplines of shooting. .22 is also great to start out with because it's very budget friendly. Firearms chambered in .22 are much cheaper compared to firearms chambered in larger calibers. Ammunition is also very cheap, so this will allow you to spend more time on the range shooting a higher volume of ammunition, giving you just that much more practice and that much more time to nail those basic fundamental skills. Now that you've got those basic firearm skills down solid, we can circle back to that original question. What type of shooting do I want to do? Now, of course, there's a myriad of different types of shooting that you can do and almost an infinite number of reasons for wanting to buy a gun, and it would just take too long to get into all those in today's video. So we're going to focus on just a few reasons for why you might want to buy a firearm. Reason number one for why you might want to buy a firearm is for self-defense. Now, this can be broken down into two subcategories. The first being everyday concealed carry for those situations that hopefully will never arise when you may need to defend yourself out in public. For concealed carry, you're going to want to take a look at a handgun of some sort, be it a semi-auto pistol or a revolver. Now, there's pros and cons to each platform, and it would take too long to get into all those here in today's video, but we'll touch on just a few. A couple of upsides to a semi-auto pistol is they're typically going to be a little bit smaller than a revolver, making them easier to conceal. You're also going to be able to carry more ammunition. For example, in my SIG P365X, I can fit 12 rounds in the stock factory magazines plus one in the chamber for a total of 13 rounds, something that a revolver is never ever going to be able to do for you. Now, downside to all this ammo capacity is you're sacrificing power. My SIG P365X is chambered in 9mm, which is nowhere near as powerful as, say, a .357 Magnum, which is a very common cartridge for a revolver. So you're going to have to decide for yourself. Do you want more ammo capacity or do you want a more powerful cartridge? There's really no right or wrong answer. You just have to do your own research to decide what's best for you. The other subcategory of buying a gun for self-defense would, of course, be home defense. Now, when it comes to home defense, there's really no right or wrong answer per se about what type of firearm you should buy, but there are a few things that you should consider. Probably the most important thing to take into account is where you live. For example, if you live in an apartment, it's probably not a very good idea to use an AR-15 as your home defense weapon, because 5.56 will go through that wall and the next wall and probably the wall after that. Not ideal if you're trying to shoot a home intruder and you end up putting rounds through your neighbor's apartment as well. definitely not a good idea. But let's say you live out in the country someplace, well away from all of your neighbors, and you really don't care if you put 5.56 through a bunch of your own walls. Okay, then an AR-15 may be a viable option for you. But probably not the best idea if you live in a subdivision or an apartment where it's probably going to penetrate your neighbor's walls. And of course, we have to talk about the 12 gauge shotgun when it comes to home defense, because 12 gauge is basically synonymous with home defense. Now, if you think you might want to run a 12 gauge shotgun as your home defense weapon, again, you need to consider where you live, because a common self-defense round to run in a 12 gauge shotgun is double-aught buckshot, which also has the capability of going through your wall, your neighbor's wall, and maybe even your neighbor's wall. So take into account where you live, because again, if you're in an apartment, double-aught buckshot might not be ideal. But if you live somewhere where there's nobody else around, that may definitely be a viable option for you in your home defense situation. Handguns are also a great option for home defense, be it a semi-auto handgun or a revolver. And if you live in an apartment or a densely packed subdivision, a pistol caliber is probably going to be your friend, because it's not nearly as likely to go through multiple walls as, say, 5.56 or buckshot. So if you live in one of those densely packed areas, a handgun may be a good option for you. Reason number 2 for why you might want to buy a gun for the first time would be hunting. Now, the type of gun you buy for hunting will be determined by the type of game you want to go after. If you're going to go bird hunting, you're going to want to get a 12 gauge shotgun, probably a pump action such as a Mossberg 500 or a Remington 870. But for larger game such as deer, you're probably going to want to go with a bolt action rifle. It is also possible to hunt with a semi-auto rifle, but laws regarding hunting with a semi-auto rifle vary from state to state, so be sure to check with your local laws about whether or not you can use a semi-auto rifle for hunting. Number 3 is sports shooting, and the sports shooting discipline that you want to get into will determine what type of firearm you need to purchase. For example, if you're wanting to get into skeet or trap shooting, you're going to need a 12 gauge shotgun such as a pump action or an over-under. Or if you're wanting to get into something else like, say, 3-gun competitions, for example, you'll of course need 3 firearms, a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun. So the type of discipline that you're wanting to get into will determine what type of firearm or firearms that you need to purchase. So be sure to research whatever discipline it is that you may want to get into to help you determine what firearm is best for you. Reason number 4 for why you might want to buy a firearm for the first time is for anti-tyranny purposes, which in my opinion is the best reason anybody could ever have for wanting to buy a gun for the first time. So if you're needing a gun for those anti-tyranny purposes, you're going to want to look at a semi-auto rifle such as an AK-47 or an AR-15 to use as your primary weapon. But you're also going to want to run a semi-auto pistol as a backup weapon. For this, I would definitely take a look at a Glock or Smith & Wesson M&P 1911, something along those lines to use as your backup weapon to your primary weapon. Now, if you want to take it one step further, you could even consider running a backup weapon to your backup weapon. This could be anything from another semi-auto pistol or maybe even a revolver. Now, if I was personally building up an anti-tyranny loadout, I would probably run an AR-15 as my primary offensive weapon. I'd probably go with my Glock 17 as a backup secondary weapon. And then if I was to run a backup to my backup, I'd probably go with a large caliber revolver such as my Taurus Tracker 44. No matter what your reason may be for wanting to buy a gun for the first time, and no matter what type of gun you actually end up purchasing, it's absolutely critical that you remember these 3 things: research, expert advice, and training. It's absolutely essential that you do your own research and gather information that is specific to the type of shooting that you want to get into. Now, once you've gathered information and done your research regarding the type of shooting that you want to get into, it's a great idea to go out and get some expert advice. Now, this can be as simple as going down to your local gun store and talking to them about the type of shooting that you want to do, and they'll be able to guide you to the type of firearm that's best for you. Lastly, but most important, is get trained. Training is absolutely essential before you go out and use any firearm for any purpose. Now, you can absolutely train yourself using online resources. There's so much good information available online from firearms experts about any kind of discipline you could think of when it comes to shooting. But if you would prefer to learn under supervision, a lot of local gun shops will offer training courses such as concealed carry courses or just basic firearm safety courses. Now these courses are great because you have a firearms instructor right there next to you who can instantly give you feedback on your shooting and offer you advice on what you may be doing wrong and correct those mistakes before they become bad habits. Now whether you decide to train yourself using online resources or you go out and take some firearm safety courses under the supervision of an instructor, it really doesn't matter because you just have to get trained. All too often I hear about people who bought a gun for the first time and then they never practice with it, they never learn how to be safe with it, they just put it in a drawer somewhere and it never sees the light of day again. And somehow these people expect to be able to safely and effectively use that firearm when they've never trained with it. So it's absolutely critical that you go out and get trained with whatever type of firearm it is that you purchased. So we've covered a few different reasons for why you might want to buy a gun for the first time and a few different options that are available out there depending on the type of shooting you want to do. Now just remember, this video is not a be-all end-all video telling you exactly what type of gun you should buy for whatever type of shooting you want to do. This video is just a general overview of some different reasons you might have for wanting to buy a gun and a few general options that exist for those different disciplines. Again, it's absolutely essential that you do your own research and gather information specific to the type of shooting that you want to do, and then take that information to your local gun store, go and talk to them, and they can help guide you to the type of firearm that's right for you. All right, that's gonna do it for me today, guys. Be sure to go and follow me over on X. I'm wanting to build that up as a backup platform to YouTube, since as y'all know, YouTube is very hostile toward gun tubers, so I want to build up X as a backup platform should YouTube ever do something crazy like shutting the channel down or whatever. There's no threat of that at the moment, but I have had a couple recent videos get demonetized for literally absolutely just stupid reasons. So head over to X, follow me over there so we can have a separate space from YouTube. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I appreciate all of you guys being here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and to check out my merch store. And until next time, show me them firearms. Now this is absolutely going to tick the government off. But that's kind of the whole point of the Second Amendment, and that's why we love it so much.